While it's slightly different from last summer, it is still time for the Sixers to hit the ground running with free agency. More importantly, their own free agents when it comes to Quentin Grimes and Guerschon Yabusele. And we'll talk about it all with you right here from 5 to 7 on the PHLY Sixers Free Agency Friendly. Welcome to the show on a Monday here as we get ready for free agency in the NBA to kick off at 6 p.m. We're already starting to hear things out there, of course, around the association, but none of that stuff can become official until the league opens at 6 p.m. So we'll be here and have you covered with it all right here on the
Nobody's
PHLY
ever talked to agents or players before the opening of free agency.
No, they have not. And so that means nothing is going on. It's all just lies and deception out there right now. Not really. Welcome again, Derek Bodner, Kyle Newbeck. I'm Devon Givens, president of basketball operations. Bree is here producing. All of you in the chat, thank you for hanging with us for this 2-hour special. And again, Kyle, it's a little bit different from last summer. By the way, we are presented by Rothman Orthopedics. That is consistent. Also last summer, presented by Rothman Orthopedics. They are presenting us here again throughout the summer. And for this special, visit rothmanortho.com/PHLY if you need to schedule an appointment. But Kyle, it is a little bit different from last year where it was Paul George and Caleb Martin and Guerschon Yabusele later on.
And even when we didn't know it was Paul George, it was at least, Devon, the specter of, oh, wow, they have max space,
yes,
right? So if you don't sign Paul George, who's that money going to? Is it a combination of Kentavious Caldwell-Pope and Chris Paul and, just like pull all these veterans out of thin air, maybe Caleb Martin, whoever it could have been. And this year, it's, obviously – you can't have a 2-month-long draft debate and then roll right into, hey, they're going to sign a max free agent or two. I think our brains would be overloaded, leaking out of our ears. So instead we got...
Unless you're the Brooklyn Nets.
Well,
yeah,
perhaps. I'm going to slam the doubt button that they're doing anything serious this offseason, but we shall see. Instead, the Sixers got the number 3 overall pick, came away with a player that we're all pretty pumped about, I would say. And now we go into free agency and it's more, can they keep these 2 key guys? And what is it going to cost? What's the competition for Quentin Grimes and Guerschon Yabusele? And then once you get past that barrier, that hurdle, what do you do with your minimums, right? Yeah. Like they've had some success in recent years with their minimums. Yabu was one of their success stories there. Kelly Oubre, a year prior when he initially was brought here, signed a minimum deal, and that ends up turning out pretty nicely for the Sixers. Can they find another big-time value guy on one of those contracts? That's what we're going to find out. So, no, it's not Paul George. It's not a max contract player. But I think if you asked a lot of the people who watch our show and are listening right now, they're not enamored with Paul George right now anyway, so bring on some minimum guys and a re-signed Quentin Grimes for sure.
So after a big offseason last summer, Derek, how you feeling about this one? Again, different approach, different reasons for that approach, but the approach in and of itself, it is what it is.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think there's a bunch of things that are important. First of all, it is, Quentin Grimes, the contract he ends up getting. And I say that in part because, yes, it's on the one hand, the key is first keeping him, and I think we all feel pretty strongly that they will, in part because he's a restricted free agent, so it's literally your choice whether or not you want to lose him. But it's not just about keeping him. It's about keeping him with a contract where if you need to do something down the line, he's still a positive value contract. They don't have a ton of sort of, contracts that they can easily aggregate for future trades. They're a little inflexible in that regard. You've got some small ones, like Andre Drummond, unfortunately, like Kelly Oubre Jr., but you don't have anything really all that significant unless you're going to part with your stars. Quentin Grimes, if you get him on like a $15 to $20 million per year contract, all of a sudden becomes important, not just on the basketball court, but as a trade chip in the future as well. It really gives you an added bit of flexibility that you just currently don't have. And especially because one of the benefits we talked about last summer when they signed Paul George is, well, you've still got all of your draft picks to use in trades. They still, obviously they just use one of them on VJ Edgecombe, but they still have a bunch that they can use in trades, but they don't have a lot of salary they can use to match. So the perfect world is you sign Quentin Grimes on a, let's say, $17-ish million contract, 15 to 17, who has positive trade value. In the short term, he plays a role, but as VJ Edgecombe sort of establishes himself, he becomes a chip you can use to try to trade because they have a glaring hole at power forward right now. The other thing is Daryl's been really good at a bunch of these margin moves. And it doesn't really matter because the big swings have, he's fallen flat on his face on with a bunch of them. But like we're sitting here talking about Grimes and you got him very cheaply. You were sitting here talking about Yabusele, who you signed for the minimum last year. We're sitting here talking about, Kelly Oubre, who opted in the second year of his contract, who 2 years ago signed a minimum deal. So he's gotten real contributors with these minimum slots. And we might sit here and look like, oh, great. Like what's another minimum slot? Can they really help? We've actually seen, they can. You can find a rotation player, and Daryl Morey specifically can find a rotation player. So I think there's a lot at stake, even if maybe the anticipation isn't anywhere near what it was last year.
So we're going to go over, before we get to 6 p.m. and some of these rumors or at least confirmations to start to drop from various places, including at this desk, where we get some things. We're going to give some names of possible free agents that the Philadelphia 76ers may be able to target with the money that they're allowed to spend. We'll get Derek to lay some more of that out as he is known to do. We'll also talk about maybe some trade possibilities and how they can get those done for the Sixers. Again, limited space from a season ago, but still some chances for them to maybe make some moves via the trade market as well. So we'll lay all of those out, see how you feel. Maybe you guys, like you typically do, throw some stuff in there for us in the chat. Let us know some of the names that you like, maybe the ones that we throw out. You agree, you disagree. And as the names start to drop right there around 6:01, and they start to funnel through maybe some other teams as well around the NBA, we'll throw some of those out there. And I'm sure we'll get, how come we didn't sign that guy at that number also when those play out? So, Derek, what you did just sum up that out there, of course, with the Grimes, the Yabusele, and the minimum stuff that they can go out there. So what are they able to actually go out there and do outside of those two gentlemen? What else can they do as far as the minimums, how much that costs, and
not much.
That type of stuff. By the way, make sure you go to allphly.com. Check out the primer.
Big time primer from Derek.
From Derek today. There at allphly.com. You can still take advantage of our Make Your Move sale right now. The intro offer at $36. You do that right now, it's a good time to do so, to sign up to find out what is available to the Philadelphia 76ers at allphly.com. And the other big news in Philadelphia basketball that Kyle wrote about, we'll talk maybe a little bit about that later. The finally WNBA team coming to Philadelphia, and it looks
as
like
yet unnamed. We'll see. That'll probably take a while. Like even Portland has a team coming next year, and they still haven't announced their name.
No, you've got like 15 peer review groups you're going to have to run that name through. You've got some work to do.
We'll get there. So
Philadelphia freedom.
A lot of name options. So what do you got?
I mean, there's really not, like, after Grimes, theoretically you could use a taxpayer mid-level, but it's going to be real tight. Like if you give Grimes, I think the calculation I did, if you give Grimes $17 million and sign 2 more minimum contracts, you would have about just over $5 million, like $5.2 million left to play with in that taxpayer mid-level, which isn't even the full taxpayer mid-level. It's about $500K short of the full taxpayer mid-level. And quite frankly, I don't think they would want to go right up to the edge of that anyway, in part because you want a little bit of flexibility, but in part because Josh Harris has just shown that he values the ability to deduct the tax at the trade deadline if the need arises to do so. So I'm dubious whether or not they would actually use that taxpayer mid-level in this scenario, but theoretically you have that at your disposal. Now, if you can do something like move, Andre Drummond, although moving Drummond, it'll save you a little bit, because you replace Andre Drummond's $5 million with like a $2.5 million, $2.3 million minimum. So you gain about $2.7 million in space, but it's not a ton. Moving Kelly would help even more, but Kelly's actually a contributor and a role player, and you don't have all that many wings. So they're a little bit limited on what they can do. I think they will probably go out and try to pursue a place to dump Andre Drummond's contract. That would, save about $2.7 million.
Charlotte could use a center.
And maybe that means you can use your taxpayer mid.
Not a believer in Kalkbrenner.
Not by himself. I think he can use some help after the Nurkic trade.
He needs some veteran presence in the front court, Devon.
That's
just
right.
as I have to hear these leaks about,
and it's not just Diabate, or they need some more there. So, but off of what Derek was saying.
Well, something that Derek brought up that I think is important to consider here, right? Like, Kelly Oubre is one of the only guys they have on a what you would call like a mid-tier contract that is theoretically tradable if you want to go out and get somebody. Like, so if we were to bring up Herb Jones, for example, a guy who came up quite often as we were talking about trade down proposals heading into the draft. You don't know how the Pelicans are valuing all these guys coming in. So I think he's got 2 years this year and the next left on his deal. So maybe they're looking to get ahead of his market a little bit. You basically have to use Kelly to get to that number. And at least in that case, like I think if you traded, for example, Kelly and Drummond, and then you're going to have to compensate them through the draft, that's fine, right? Because you're getting a switchable wing / forward who's coming in and filling the hole that the team needs filled in the front court, or just at like a 3-4 hybrid type of role. But if you lose Kelly in a deal where, you don't get someone who can play the wing back, all of a sudden, like, okay, maybe you have a power forward, but then you also might have, it's like Justin Edwards and Paul George, and that's banking a lot on Justin Edwards having a big year too. Now, we have laid out a lot of the reasons why the organization is bullish on Justin Edwards. We all saw how he played as a rookie, right? Thrust into a tough situation. He has the high school pedigree, all that. But there is a pretty thin margin for error there, right? If you do trade Kelly, and I'm not advocating for doing so unless you come up with a Herb Jones type. But that's the position that they're in right now, right? I think we all can get behind the idea of, you draft VJ Edgecombe. I think honestly, part of the reason that things are so tight right now is because you take Broom at 35 and it's not clear what position he's going to play. He's probably going to have to play mostly center unless he shoots.
Yeah.
If you had gotten a wing or you had gotten a 4 type with that pick, and you could at least say, okay, it'll be a developmental guy, but at least we have a player who's at that position in theory, you're maybe not as desperate as I think they are right now to make sure at some point you add somebody at that front court spot, because it is a giant hole that they have on the roster right now.
Yeah, it's a huge hole.
And it's not even like any of their wings can really play. Like I'm a big fan of wings who can slide over and play some 4, but like Paul doesn't and really can't, and Kelly doesn't rebound. Like you don't really have someone who can really defend and rebound that position.
Especially when the guy that Paul George was slated for that spot doesn't want to play that position all that much. So you need somebody on the roster who can actually go out there and play that position. So those are some of the names that we're going to also talk about and just simply look at on the free agent market. If there are any power forwards that you are willing to go out there and give a little bit of money to, maybe in the trade market as well, and see how you all feel about those names and see maybe how much you want to see Yabusele back for, and is he a starting candidate because of that reason too, that you just simply do not have anybody at that position. So that's going to be one that is really interesting to see how we can play out. And what was the one that you were showing me as far as some of the names that were surprising to us? That was DeAndre Ayton, just to give some people an idea about where things are. With some of these free agents that are going to be available.
Well, here's the thing that I think is Derek just exited. Is it stage left or stage right? That was a nice deceptive.
Actually, left.
I'm not a stage whatever. So Derek will be back in a minute. So here's the interesting part about where free agency is at just across the board, right? With the new CBA and with the restrictions on roster building and with how teams are thinking about contracts moving forward, Devon. I think the big thing to watch is what happens to the middle class of NBA free agents, right? Because for a long time, there was a pretty big and open market for, I love the open chair for Derek.
It's perfect.
It's like a symbolic. So for a long time, there was a pretty healthy middle class of players / contract where, hey, this guy is a role player on our team, and he's going to make a pretty good chunk of this out because he's just like a good NBA player. And now there are still guys getting good money, but I think players are getting squeezed, right?
Yeah.
And so unless you're Quentin Grimes is actually a good example, because Quentin Grimes is a good enough player to get paid, also young enough to get paid, and has that future upside from that youth where you can sell yourself on, okay, this guy will play himself into this contract or will be worth this contract. I think a different version of that is the extension that Jabari Smith Jr. got from the Rockets, right? So he gets 5 for 122.
Mm-hmm.
Jabari Smith Jr. has not been good enough to warrant 5 for 122 right now, right? Based on his production up to this point. He hasn't been bad, but he also hasn't been an exceptional player despite being taken with a top 5 pick. But Houston was willing to say, okay, we believe in you enough and see enough of a future for you, especially as they change some things with the roster. Jalen Green is outgoing. Maybe you elevate Reed Shepherd. Maybe you get another playmaker in there. Obviously, Kevin Durant solves things for a lot of people all over the roster. And you say, well, 5 for 122 is a little expensive right now. That it's okay. You play yourself into it. And I think that has to be the hope with the Quentin Grimes contract, right? It's not that, and we've heard some stuff out there, right? Tony Jones at The Athletic reporting the $25 million a year want or ask.
That's where I was going to go.
However you want to phrase that, Devon. And like, let's be serious. I could walk into a meeting with our bosses here and be like, hey, I want $10 million a year to work for PHLY. There's always a high starting point, no matter what. So $25 million, I don't think he's getting close to in the market. I don't think he's worth that. But I think a lot of people also were more on the side of, oh, they're going to get him for like $10 to $12 million. I don't believe that's the case. And I don't think they probably even should, because of the reasons Derek mentioned with salary matching and potentially making trades. You could make an argument they probably shouldn't try to squeeze him down to 12, 13 million, even if they could.
Yeah.
Because if you want to make a trade for, let's say, Trey Murphy's another guy we've talked about in the past. Trey Murphy's making $25 million a year. So if you want to get to that number without trading someone like Tyrese Maxey, you can't do that unless you have a contract like this on the book. So I think people haven't internalized that as part of the calculus. I'm not saying that you sign Quentin Grimes to a bloated, terrible deal just because you want to try to trade him later. There will be a point where you cross a threshold and all of a sudden, hey, that's too much money for him. But I do think if you have any sticker shock when you see that report, one, just consider that that's part of negotiating in general. And two, they need to have these kind of salaries to be able to make some of the trades that I think people want them to make down the road.
Yeah, so one of the things I was going to ask you was, what was that walkaway number for you? Even though it's not your money, you don't care. But we do talk about salary cap, what they're able to fit underneath their salary cap, how it fits their roster. But he was also traded at the deadline to Philadelphia. Mm-hmm. They don't have the money, as we said at the top of the show, to go out there and make the splashes that they did last summer. This is essentially it is. He's a restricted free agent, but this is essentially their splash move, re-signing and keeping their player. So what is that walkaway number? He's not going to be as low as 12, but we were talking about before 15, 17, somewhere in that range, and then we would pretty much stop. Then you said Tony Jones said the one where it's 25 million. All right, that's a bit
just
much.
No way.
All right, that's
way.
A bit much. You tip your cap to him and say thanks for the fun there at the end, but good luck to you, and you go out there and you ball out and earn that money. If you get that, good for you. But in this case, like we said before, Mark Stein had reported it there maybe last week, 15 to 17 still in that number. So what is that walkaway number? If it's not as high as 25, what is that number? As Philly 0024 says, 17 mil.
I think that ends up being around fair for him. I think once you get to 20 plus is where it starts to be like, is this still a movable deal? Right? If you're not keeping him to make him part of this, future core or current core or whatever, that's when you have to be like, you know what? Does somebody want, if it's after this year, do they want 3 for 60 for Quentin Grimes? And look, would he even be having this conversation if Quentin Grimes didn't get the jack shots for 2.5 months at the end of the year? It certainly doesn't seem like it, right? Because for whatever reason, he bounced around a little bit pre-Philadelphia and was viewed more as a spot-up shooter like 3-and-D type guy, right?
Some
like that was
creation,
more
though.
the book on him, like ability to put it
Yeah.
on the deck and create for himself, but maybe doing too much of that. And then he comes here and he was able to show something that he really had not shown up to that point. Whatever you think about it, however meaningful you think the end of the season was for Quentin Grimes or the Sixers, and it was quite meaningful to keep their pick at the very least. He made himself some money. I'm just not sure how high I'm willing to go, because end of the day, while I think he will help them win games once they're whole and they have a real roster next to him and around him, he is not a higher developmental priority for me than a Jared McCain, that certainly than a VJ Edgecombe. And so I think the rubber will meet the road at some point, just because it's a pure numbers game. But
So
you don't let them walk over, $1 million or two here and there.
Here's my question though. So like, I don't think there is a real threat to offer him more than $20 million a year.
You mean another team?
Yeah. I think if there's a threat, it's him taking that $8.7 million qualifying offer and trying to become a free agent, an unrestricted free agent next year when there's more money on the market. And if he's willing to do that rather than take a $20 million, like a starting $20 million, which would be like an $89 million contract, I'd call his bluff on it.
Yeah.
The worst case scenario is you get him for another year.
You got to make them go find the money somewhere, by the way. Like if they're coming to you and saying, we want 25, that's okay, go talk to a team and make them give you $25 million a year. Because I don't buy that it's out there.
Yeah.
No.
All right. So Gene says $20 million. Gene Ross. Hedford says 4 for 70. How about you? Let us know in the chat. We're hanging out with you here on our PHLY Sixers free agency frenzy. When we come back, we'll keep talking a little bit more about Quentin Grimes, because I want to know how much the guys really believe what we saw to go out there and pay that number. The same for you. Same for Bree, all of us while we're here hanging out on this Monday. Free agency gets underway at 6 p.m. Sixers, Grimes, Yabusele. What are some of the trade targets, free agent options for the Sixers? We'll talk about it all in this first hour right here on the PHLY Sixers Free Agency Frenzy podcast. Before this rain started taking over in our area, everybody, it was hot. So maybe you were out there running, maybe you were playing some pickleball, maybe playing some basketball out there on the asphalt, and you said, you know what, go home, take a shower, but I need to smell good thereafter, of course, maybe lotion up, whatever you're doing, but you also have to spray, and that is what our good people from Mando, the men's deodorant brand that's hyper-focused on keeping every aspect of a man's body smelling fresh and clean. And when you do so, Mando overtly calls out more colorful parts of the men's body, such as the pits, the belly buttons, the lower regions, the butt cracks, the grundles, and more. Their scents are geared towards men with options like bourbon leather, Clover Woods, Mount Fuji, and Pro Sport. And with it, safe to use anywhere on your body. It's been created by a doctor who saw firsthand how normal BO was being misdiagnosed and mistreated. It's clinically proved to block odor all day and control odor for up to 72 hours. Solid deodorant sticks formulated and powered by mandelic acid to stop odor before it stays. The spray deodorant, aluminum-free and ideal for hard-to-reach places. I have opted for the spray. I'm just letting you all know we're all family here. All products baking soda free and paraben free as well. And here's what you have. 100% natural. It's organic, right? Fragrance oil free. Dermatologist recommended. And the other brands' names, they just simply don't match up to Mando overall. So 12 hours after a shower, the average man's grundle odor level was at 5 out of 10. With Mando, the average grundle odor level is a 0 out of 10. So the Mando starter pack is perfect for new customers. It comes with a solid deodorant stick, cream tube deodorant, 2 free products of your choice like mini body wash, and the deodorant wipes, and free shipping. As a special offer for listeners, new customers can get $5 off the starter pack with our exclusive code that equates to over 40% off that starter pack. Use code PHLY at shopmando.com. Shop Mando, that's SHOPMANDO.com. Please support our show. Tell them we sent you. Smell fresher, stay drier, and boost your confidence from head to toe with Mando. All right, so I walked into my garage yesterday, and it felt like a sauna.
I got to tell you, Devon, this Philadelphia heat, especially coming off a cool period, No joke.
All right, so here's what I did. I got like 10 bags of ice, and I made myself an ice bath to stay cool instead of turning on the AC.
But why wouldn't you just turn on your air conditioning?
Well, I was trying to be energy efficient. Go green, go birds, right? And a little power dribble. Make sure I stay away from it.
Yeah, but, instead of icing yourself out, you could just check out Pico's energy saving rebates. They've got deals on Energy Star cooling equipment that actually work, and they cut down your bills.
Hold on. So no more ice?
Unless it's an ice cold beer, Devon, we don't need to talk about ice.
That makes a lot of sense.
So everybody just head to pico.com/ways to save. They've got tips for everything. Heating, cooling, lighting, you name it. Don't resort to ice like my friend Devon over here.
Welcome back to the PHLY Sixers Free Agency Frenzy Show here on this Monday, June 30th, presented by Rothman Orthopedics. And Derek, I got to ask you as we talk about this. So the number that was said to be around the number, I believe our teammate Mark Stein from DLLS have reported last summer that for Quentin Grimes, it was somewhere in that range of like Caleb Martin got, that 4 for around that 36, close to 40 million. And you said, I'll call, for him, he said, I'm betting on myself, and it looks like it might have worked out for him. But if not, you call his bluff again for that qualifying offer. So he clearly has earned himself more money. But how much do you believe in the player for what you could potentially see the Sixers offer up at that number?
Yeah, and I think some people are looking at it like, well, if you pay him $17 million a year, you're paying him for production that he will never reach again, right? And clearly, I don't think at any course, if he signs a 4-year deal, he will never touch like the 22, 5, and 5 that he averaged for the Sixers. But if you give him 17 per year, that's not paying him for 22, 5, and 5 production. Like that would get you 30, 35 million per year if people really bought into it going forward. Now, I will say, like, if 15 to 17 is more than I think he would have gotten before he came to the Sixers. Like, I think we were probably looking at like a $12-ish million per year range before he got to the Sixers. It's now gone up to 15 to 17. I do think there's some inherent value in having a guy who has shown, even if it's only during a 28-game stretch, even if it's during a lot of nonsense basketball, who has shown that he can ramp up when your stars are out, who can assume a larger creation burden, especially on this team, when your stars are going to miss some serious time. So it doesn't mean he's going to do it all the time. It doesn't mean he's going to do it, all that often, but just that he has a capability over like a 7-game stretch.
Absolutely.
When like Tyrese Maxey and Paul George are out. I think that has some legitimate value, especially for a team that, quite frankly, as we saw next year, you're not a guarantee to make the playoffs anymore. Like, stuff could go completely sideways. Having him there to help steady the ship, if you have normal injury luck and not like worst of all time injury luck like they had last year, I think you should pay him more than you would have paid him before he got to Philly. That doesn't mean that you're paying him for 22, 5, and 5 production. It just means you're valuing him a little bit more. I think look, we can talk all we want to about numbers on a bad team. It is not easier to shoot, especially a three-pointer, when you're the focus of a team's defense. And what he was able to do...
And never been the focus.
So for him to be able to do that, I don't care if it was in low-stakes basketball. He was doing that against NBA teams. And doing that at that volume, like, he shot the ball well all year. He was shooting 40% from three with Dallas, comes here, changes his role, shoots a higher volume of self-created, shot 37.3% with the Sixers. I have confidence in him being a useful player. And I do think a lot of people are going to look at this number because it's really easy to get caught up in the numbers. And wow, that's a lot of money. That's barely more than a mid-level contract. That's barely more than that's fifth starter money in today's NBA.
Which he might be on this basketball team.
So I don't in the range that we're talking about, in that 15 to 20 range, obviously you'd prefer it to be in that 15 range rather than 20, but I don't think this is all that risky of a contract. Like I said, I don't ever expect him to touch the numbers he put up last year. He's just never going to get the ball that much. And gosh, if he does, we're in real trouble because, But I do think 15 to 20, you're not paying him for that. You're paying him to be a fourth, fifth starter, and I think he can be that.
Plus, in an 82-game schedule where guys are going to miss time, maybe not at the level as you talked about from last season, but he has shown that with the talent around him, with all due respect, which is not what we think he's going to be playing with this time. So he can get hot. If you believe that when the player does get hot and they continue to find that hot hand, he can go off. And he can go off in a big way that can put some big-time points on the board that'll help you in many times where we say, hey, how come nobody else outside of Tyrese Maxey can generate their own shot, can find ways to get to the basket, can get to the free throw line, quite frankly, as well, and can do it at every level from getting to the free throw line to making three-pointers, the mid-range shot, and getting to the basket and finishing at the rim. He has shown that he can simply go out there and do those things. So while the number may not be what you want, you're just banking on the player coming in and being, maybe he's a 15 to 17 point per game player next year in a starting role, healthy, by the way. He was healthy, that they don't have much of. But he can just simply go out there and play basketball and hoop. And when he has other people around him that, yes, they're going to be taking shots away from him, there's just going to be situations where those double teams come. And when we're not worried of, man, Caleb Martin is about to rise up again with that wicked-looking jump shot. Well, no, Quentin Grimes' shot looks pretty good. The form looks pretty good. The lift looks pretty good. All that things. You trust his decision-making as a scorer to do so. Plus, one more, he was given the ball a lot, too, to run the offense, Kyle, where maybe he's that secondary option as a guy that's setting up the offense, but he's also, most importantly, setting up Tyrese Maxey to play off the rock where he can do Tyrese Maxey stuff, where he's not on the ball as much.
Yeah, can I just say, real brief interlude here with, I love our guy, Mark Stein, but Mark, can you please, a half hour before free agency opens, not retweet a WNBA All-Star news alert? Because when I see the people that I trust tweet, it's like, oh my God, it's got to be breaking news, got to be. And I look down and it's like, all due respect to Paige Beckers, I don't need to learn about the WNBA All-Star starters a half hour before free agency. To your point, Devon, what he showed at the end of last year is that he can be more than what people thought he was, which was a closeout attacker, spot-up shooter, maybe a little bit of movement shooting type of stuff. Guy who is primarily playing off of advantages that other players have created. He put himself into a category of, maybe this guy is an advantage creator. Maybe this is someone you can put at the top of a pick and roll and he can go get a bucket for himself, or he can set someone up like an Adembona on the bench. Or, as you're saying, Devon, Tyrese Maxey can run off the ball and come off of a flare screen, come off of a pin down, and feel okay that you're putting it in the hands of somebody else that also, by the way, has backcourt size, right? Some positional flexibility, can take on some different matchups, can do some things that maybe some of the other guys that they have cannot, right? And like, look, while I do think there's probably a walkaway number, it is going to be pretty high. It's going to be high for what we would say is a role player. And he came here last year and shattered some notions that I think people had about his game. We viewed the trade as a steal. It's only a steal if you get something out of him more than, 2.5 months or whatever it was
for a bad
tanking
team.
basketball on a bad team. You have to take the chance that at least some of this is real. That doesn't mean he's got to score, 20 plus points and 5 assists, 5 rebounds. Doesn't need to fill up the box score. If you look at the Thunder, and if you were to go through the Thunder's, just basketball reference page of all the stats, right? Obviously, Shea's stats jump off the page. Jalen Williams' stats are like, oh yeah, that's a guy who should be all-star consideration. But a lot of those guys are just like, those are pedestrian numbers. And then you watch the game and their ability to either generate turnovers, generate leverage as drivers, like whatever it is, helps them win a lot of basketball games, right? So you have to get outside of the, if they sign him for $18 million a year and he's only averaging, 10 points, 12 points, whatever it is, there are going to be people who look at it and say, well, how can you give a guy that much money? He's only doing this. But the versatility, the shot making, the on ball, the off ball, like that's a valuable package no matter what the ultimate numbers say. And so I see the value for him. I see the vision. I think you basically have to bring him back.
100%.
But I also see a glaring hole in the front court and see a future where more than likely this is a logjam that will get addressed via trade one way or another, unless there is a pretty sizable step forward or unexpected development from one of these 4 main guys in the backcourt. somebody's getting moved at some point. It's just not going to be in the short term.
And when you look at, as we've talked about since drafting the Sixers, VJ Edgecombe, looking at Tyrese Maxey, Jared McCain, VJ Edgecombe, we've talked about the foursome of the backcourt and what that looks like. They're all 25 and under, including Quentin Grimes, going into the next season. So that's a big, big plus for the Sixers, some talented guys. And especially if we're discussing the length, athleticism, size, and youth that the president of basketball operations discussed this summer. I mean, you start there, smaller guards.
That Bree discussed?
Yes, she did. Absolutely. The smaller guards, good job by that too, Bree. The smaller guards there for that, I mean, now you're just talking about making sure that you have some taller guys in those other positions to fill out the rest of the roster. And one of them, as we stay on the Sixers free agent topic, is Guerschon Yabusele.
Yep.
And he's the unrestricted one. That can happen immediately, where the restricted part of it, you have to wait and see if other teams offer Quentin Grimes an offer sheet, like Derek said. Let some other team go out there, let him go find it. But the Yabusele piece, that can happen right away.
Yeah, well, so the big difference, and Derek can get into the mechanics of why this is, the big difference is you can basically retain Quentin Grimes as long as you're willing to pay him.
Yeah.
Yabusele, there is a hard out. There's just, you can only offer him legally so much, right? And so we've known there's been interest in Yabusele from several teams for a while. San Antonio has been listed as, I think, the main front runner if he's going to leave. Rumored early in the process. Interest has been there. They have some other things going on in free agency, but none that are like, oh man, that guy's going to get a ton of money from the Spurs. And so there's a chance that they are just able to pay Guerschon more than the Sixers can. And at that point, it becomes which situation is more appealing to you, Guerschon Yabusele, the player. So the main thing that you're selling to Yabu in free agency is this situation, is the opportunity that the hole on the depth chart that we're all staring at, you can credibly go to Guerschon Yabusele and say, you can be a day one starter and a really important player for this team, no matter what, like whether Joel Embiid is healthy or not, whether Paul George is healthy or not. Those guys are not impacting your spot in the rotation necessarily, unless we're talking about what we saw last year, which is Yabu getting more 5 minutes because they just needed somebody to step in and play, with Drummond hurt and playing poorly and Adembona just frankly not being ready yet early in the season. So with Yabu, that's your main thing, right? It's not that you can offer him the most money, the most years, but you can probably offer him the most playing time, right? Now, I will say, I do think that Yabu has been, just as if you're talking in a vacuum, I do think he has become slightly overrated for like what he did last year. Yes. We saw some real warts in his game, right? Some defensive issues, certainly at the 5. Like we saw he can't protect the rim. That's not really his fault. He's supposed to be a power forward. I think the most important thing was that he shot the ball really well last year, and you hope that that continues because that gives him that clear path to be an NBA power forward moving forward. But he is not a perfect player. He's not a perfectly switchable guy. I think he's smart. I think he's a good playmaker. I think he can rebound well if he's playing next to another big guy. But those are some big ifs. And so losing him would hurt more from the perspective of they just don't really have a mechanism to replace him than it is like, oh, this guy is like the greatest thing since sliced bread. I think he's a good role player. Mm-hmm. I think he's a guy that they are and should be interested in bringing back. But I think they are, from what I have heard, and certainly you guys have heard basically all the same things, they are much less convinced that he's coming back than Quentin Grimes. I think they feel good about where they're at with Grimes. And with Yabu, we're hopeful, but we see the threats to our ability to sign him.
Yeah, and a lot of that does come down to what they can offer him, which I'll get to in a second. But what you pointed out, I think that you think some people have overstated his contributions last year. I think even more so, I think some people have overstated his actual solutions to the problems they currently have. Like you look at it and say, well, they don't have a 4. Great, we need to sign him. And some people will even argue you should prioritize him over Quentin Grimes because you have a glut in the backcourt. And I don't know that he can play the 4. Like, we have
agree.
a pretty good idea that he can't defend the 5. I'm not convinced he can defend the 4 either.
Offensively, I think he can play the 4 if he shoots, right? Like,
but even
if he's
there,
a
I think he's better as a pick and pop big. I think he helps more when he's a 5 out and can pull the center out. Defensively, we don't know if he can slide his feet and defend the 4, especially on a more perimeter-oriented position nowadays. And, going back to, sort of why they can't just offer him as much money as they want. The reason they can offer Quentin Grimes as much money as they want is they have the full bird rights for him, which basically means he didn't change teams through free agency for 3+ years. So you can go over the salary cap up to the maximum and bring him back. Doesn't matter. There are no restrictions to that. Because Yabusele has only been on the team for 1 year and he signed as a free agent 1 year, you only have non-bird rights, which is only like a 20% raise over the previous year. That's nothing. It's basically minimum salary. So you have to use one of the 2 exceptions. And then 2 exceptions hard cap you at either the first apron, which is $195.9 million. You have about $13 million in space under that.
Eric's so excited that the salary projections came right in as expected,
I don't have to change a single
amazing.
thing. But you have about $13 million in space before the Quentin Grimes contract. So if you sign Quentin Grimes, you basically can't offer Yabusele that bigger mid-level. So you're left with a mid-level exception that will hard cap you still, and you can only offer up to $5.7 million. So basically, if any team beats that $5.7 million, you're pretty much screwed, is a short answer to that.
All right, let's take a quick pause. We come back. We'll keep talking about Yabusele, and if something does happen with him during the duration of the show in the 6 o'clock hour, we'll certainly talk a lot more about him. What about some possible replacements for Yabusele if he leaves at that position? Who are they? How are you going to get them? We need to talk about this because the names, well, they are interesting, and we're going to get to some of the options that are out there that Kyle and Derek and myself like, President of Basketball Ops Bree, and you, and see who you may like as a free agent option or a trade target at the forward position. We'll do that all right here on the PHLY Sixers Free Agency Frenzy on this Monday, June 30th. The NBA kicks off like 18 minutes, folks. Let's get ready. And I got to tell you about our presenting show sponsor and our summer Sixers sponsor, and that is Rothman Orthopedics. Those are my folks. I hate to say it that they're my folks because I had to do so with some major injuries with the Achilles and the ACL, but they are my folks because they did allow me to get back to being myself. So I'm proud to say that they are my folks. And if you are in need of some help, maybe not as serious as mine, but some aches and pains that you may have or some nagging injuries that we're family here, too stubborn to go get checked out. We're all there. We've all done it. Rothman Orthopedics. I know, you just put some lotion on it and it's all gone, right? You just, whatever. It's done. Whether you're running on the beach, swinging the golf clubs, playing some basketball, whatever it might be, Rothman's specialists are here to treat whatever's holding you back. Their top-tier care will have you moving and enjoying every minute of the summer like you're supposed to. And Rothman proudly serves dozens of communities across Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Florida with 30-plus convenient offices, urgent cares, and walk-in centers. And folks, I got to tell you, we got some great spots that you can go to from right now 3 in the Philly area, including Center City, Northeast Philly, and right now, a newest addition, the Navy Yard in South Philly. That's where you can go and get treated by Rothman Orthopedics. You will not be disappointed. If pain is slowing you down this season, take the first step. Head to rothmanortho.com/PHLY and schedule your appointment today. Rothman Orthopedics, your summer, your mobility, their mission.
And guys, whether your favorite team wins or not, there's always another way to win on the BetParx online casino app. Check out brand new casino games like Huff and More Puff, Fireblaze Sky Queen. Wow, that sounds really either intense, scary, fun. I don't know what to say about that one, but that's a BetParx exclusive. Play blackjack, roulette, craps, poker, baccarat, and slots like Cash Eruption, 88 Fortunes, and of course, Devon,
yes,
Cleopatra online slots. Your favorite streaming shows like The Walking Dead, Squid Game, Breaking Bad, and Peaky Blinders, and your favorite classic casino games from wherever you are. New users get up to $1,000 casino bonus back if you're down in the first 24 hours. Go to betparx.com, download the app right now, and enjoy all the action and excitement from the casino at your fingertips. You must be 21 and in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Maryland, or Michigan for BetParx. You love to play, you play to win, you bet, Bet Parks. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Welcome back to the PHLY Sixers Free Agency Frenzy Show with Derek Bodner, Kyle Newbeck. I'm Devon Givens-Bree, producing the show as always, especially when big moves need to be made out there in the association. We need our president of basketball ops. Our show is presented by Rothman Orthopedics. Visit rothmanortho.com/PHLY and visit our newest location at the Navy Yard if you need to get checked out. All right, Derek. Yabusele, we talk about him, and I'm sure we will continue to talk about him with the hour and 15 that we have to go. What are some? Can you give 3 free agent names that you would like? Can you give 3? I know you have a list, but I want to start off with 3 first. Get 3 from Kyle. I'll give my 3, and just to see where we all are together here with this free agency period.
So I'm just going to start this off with a little bit of fan service for Hedva and Santi Aldama. They have no chance. None, 0, none. He's
even though he's on everybody's list.
He's going to cost way more than the Sixers have available. But I just want to throw it out there because I think she'd be mad at me if I did not.
Yes.
It gets a little bit dicey after that, which is why Guerschon Yabusele is towards the top of a lot of these power forward lists. It's not the best in the world.
No, it's not.
Jake LaRavia is a name
on my list
that I think you would throw out there. I think he should probably get a little, he hasn't really proven quite as much, but I think he's certainly got a lot of interest there.
I think when you have size and can shoot,
bit.
you're closer to probably the non-taxpayer, if I had to guess.
Let's see. Nick Batum already went back. He wasn't coming here anyway. It's really bleak. It is really bleak. I think LaRavia would be the top of my list. I would say someone like Dorian Finney-Smith is a little bit of a smaller option, but I don't think he's going anywhere.
Oh, no, I think he's going to Houston.
You think he's going to Houston?
That seems like that is fait accompli is what it. Because there's rumors out there that the Lakers were trying to actively sabotage his free agent value.
Okay.
And it got back to Dorian Finney-Smith.
That's not
and
good.
He didn't appreciate it very much. So
I don't blame him.
Imagine if in your next contract negotiations I tried to sabotage you. Oh, that would create a hostile work environment.
I can't imagine I'd be too happy about coming to work every day in that instance.
Real fast on the LaRavia piece, just to add my 2 cents. I understand why he has to, but it's just like, okay, I get the size and the shooting and all, but it's just more of an okay for me when it comes to him.
Yeah, look, for $5.7 million, you're not getting more than okay.
No, I know. But even with the names, and while I don't love any of them, let's be clear, that was one that obviously I had on my.
I thought he was having a pretty good second season in Memphis before he moved.
And so here's the thing, right? Like, we look at what the Sixers' holes in the roster are in terms of skills, right? Not just position. And rebounding is a really important one. So is shooting, right? Like, shooting was a problem for this team well before the rash of injuries hit last year. Now, you would hope that full season of McCain, Edgecombe has a decent shooting season as a rookie. Grimes is here from the start instead of Caleb Martin, and so that's a upgrade in shooting, if nothing. But they ran into problems last year where it was like they're just sagging off of Kelly Oubre, or they're just sagging off of one of these role players and daring Tyrese Maxey to try to drive through 2 and 3 people and slalom through this like tiny little, it's like going down a ski slope. And if you can't score at the rim, you're passing to the wide open guy that the other team wants to shoot, right? And so I get that Jake LaRavia is not my favorite player in the world. The one thing I do think he's going to do is shoot. And so if you bring him here and that's all, he's just a big body who can play like a more of a stretch 4, I'm okay with that. It's not the best thing in the world, but they could certainly use it.
Yeah. So who are 3 for you, just to throw off the top?
So more of on a minimum guy is Larry Nance, because he has actually shot the ball well the last couple of years, which gives him the now low volume and has a career of being more of a dare shooter, right? Yeah. A guy that teams ignore. Mm-hmm. But historically has been a good rebounder, good defensive player, like has some switchability, has played the 5 at times, frankly. And if you believe that he now in his, I don't want to say later stages of his career, but now that he's a vet and has 2 years.
At 33, I think you can say that. That's not too disrespectful.
But I think as a minimum end of the bench guy, like I have some interest in him. Trey Lyles, I would throw out there. Like, again, not the strongest rebounder, like okay rebounder and okay shooter, but this is what we're talking about.
But I trust his shooting for whatever reason more than the LaRavia for me.
Okay. So Trey Lyles I would throw in there. After that, it gets a little tough, right? Are you looking at someone like Marvin Bagley, who's not going to shoot at all, but maybe he'll rebound? Are you looking at a name that I wrote down but is not a priority, guys like Jeremiah Robinson Earl, someone who's, I think he's still only like 24, has rebounded okay, has been like a below average-ish shooter, but maybe you believe that's projectable and building on that. And if you just want a Nick Nurse guy, Precious Achiuwa is probably going to be out there. I can't imagine he's going to get, a huge deal. Now, because he's a probably dual front court position guy, maybe more on the 5 side than the 4, a team might come up and say, hey, we'll just give you more money than the taxpayer MLE. But he's somebody I would at least keep an eye on for sure.
So for me, 2 of those names that you just laid out there were on mine. And obviously Marvin Bagley. Never thought I would say that in the year 2025 that maybe the Sixers should look at Marvin Bagley. But they need, to Kyle's point, the rebounding part is the main reason why I bring him up as a potential minimum guy at a position of need for the Philadelphia 76ers. And the other thing that stood out for me was I remember watching him at the end of the season. Of course, Memphis had already gone in a different direction. He was getting some minutes. There was a game against the Sixers as well where he actually destroyed the Sixers a little bit in the game. And
the question I would ask is who was playing for the Sixers at that point?
Yeah. But he also played a game, I can't remember who it was in the Western Conference, where he went out there and he had a double-double of like 18 and 12. And it was just more of, hey, it might still be in there. He's playing for a good coach in Taylor Jenkins. And while he never cracked the rotation, he went out there and took advantage of the opportunity that was presented to him in that moment. He did it again a couple of games later. It was more like maybe a 12-7 kind of game. But you saw the Marvin Bagley stuff that made him out to be the projected player that he was when he came into the NBA. So while I'm not asking him to go out there and be that player again, that projected top 5 pick, because he's not. But could he go out there and just be a minimum at that position, challenge Janai Broome, make him work, at least in practice, right? We keep talking about having those practice players to go against each other and making each other better. Could he do that? And we know about the little bit of scoring that might be there for him. Trey Lyles was the other for the shooting. We've seen it for years now. He's not a great rebounder, but he can shoot the basketball. Got a decent enough, bigger body where he can mix it up a little bit. If he was to go in there and do so, you would say, okay, maybe he can. And then you mentioned it, Precious Achiuwa was my third one as a possibility because of the familiarity with Nick Nurse and that he can play the 4 and the 5. And in any big lineup, he can play next to Embiid as a roamer kind of guy. He will take some outside shots, watching him as much as I did with New York last season. He will take some outside shots. He still has that hustle bone in his body where he will dive on the floor, those 50-50 balls, those types of opportunities. He can still defend a little bit. Where those are 3 names at the power forward position for me on the open market for the Sixers.
Do we have to sign Marcus Bagley to a G League contract too? Is that part of the deal?
No, they did that.
I don't think they're like the Antetokounmpos where you got to carry both.
Doesn't have quite the same cachet as Giannis does.
It doesn't have to be in the same season. One
season. Quick thing that I don't know if this will have any significance for us, but just popped up and I thought it was interesting. The Hornets, this is according to Mike Scotto over at Hoops Hype, the Hornets and Josh Okogie pushed back the decision date on his non-guaranteed salary of $7.75 million to July 15th, which is pretty interesting because it seems like that's a candidate for they're going to try to use that in a trade and then allow another team to waive him. So I'm going to keep an eye on the Hornets and what happens with that.
Again, they need another big man. So Andre Drummond. Come on down.
Devon, to circle back on circle back on LaRavia or like that type of player. Part of the reason I would be in on LaRavia despite not loving that general archetype is when you take Broome at 35, I think there has to be at least some belief in the room that he's going to be able to do the rebounding stuff that you need out of the forward spot. And I would be saying, all right, if I believe in him, if I'm trying to get into, Sixers brain trust mind, right? If you come at it from that perspective, that this kid is in some way going to factor into, here's our rebounding in the front court. You got to come up with the shooting somehow. Like they just have to get as much shooting on the floor as they can. Not even necessarily because of Joel Embiid, but the guards, right? You need space for those guards to attack and slash and like make life easier for Edgecombe, make life easier for Maxey, make life easier for McCain and Grimes. And so I think one of these guys that they add has to have some size and has to be able to shoot the ball. For me, that's like a non-negotiable. And it's probably why I am lower on a Marvin Bagley, because guys who are not going to draw defenders out, who are only rebounders, I just have a really tough time with that type of player.
No, you're not going to be able to help your rebounding if the guy can't get on the court next to your other rebounders.
Yeah.
And the Sixers just have so many players right now who, like all four
But
of
the problem is they didn't rebound at all. They didn't have any. So even if you're on the floor, the guy's sitting at the end of the bench, he's at the end of the bench, but the guys on the floor are still not rebounding either.
No, I get that, but I don't trust Bagley to play next to a traditional center. And they have four guys right now who I don't think any of them can really play next to each other. So to Kyle's point, having another non-shooter would be really tough for me.
It is we all have squinted and said like, oh, I get why they picked Janai Broom.
Squinting really is a new ramp.
All right, listen. We all kind of just like, you see the outline of why they did it culturally, like just really productive, all this stuff. And then you look at the roster and you're like, it didn't solve anything.
Yeah.
Right. Like maybe it helped your reinforcements with Joel out, but
that's why
I got to be honest. I don't think of even a 23-year-old, more of an older player coming in. I don't think a rookie big man is coming in and like that's the difference between the Sixers living and dying with Joel Embiid off the floor. So I personally would have rather tried to get somebody who's more of a complementary skill set next to everything that they have in place. And it kind of sticks out like a sore thumb as you're trying to project what they do this offseason.
That's why so many people in the chat are bringing up Maxime Reynaud. Even though he went down in the draft to Sacramento, it was the least that one skill that he had. That
now I have major concerns about his ability to defend and do all that.
Shooting.
But
it's just the shooting.
No, I have serious concerns about having four players at center, and I don't think any of them can play next week. It would be one thing if Joel Embiid was healthy and you could project that, because at least then you can get he could shoot like a four. You don't necessarily want him to, and you want him near the rim defensively, but at least you could get weird. I'm not even sure you can get weird with this group.
It's a very strange group. It just feels like there's another move or two that needs to happen. And by the way, we're almost 2 minutes away from the opening of free agency.
Why LaRavia, though, over Lyles for that point?
I don't know if it would be over Lyles. I think they're comparable. Like you're probably bringing them in for the same thing. Lyles is an okay-ish rebounder. LaRavia, okay-ish rebound. Neither one of those guys is like, oh man, he's coming in and he's going to be a real glass cleaner, right? So LaRavia has shot the ball better early. Whether long-term he is the more reliable shooter, I don't know. But yeah, they're in a similar bucket of guys that I believe will hit shots and do some other things. I don't know if either will be gettable at the number that we want them to be gettable at, or what they see as the opportunity they have here. But yeah, I think what we're laying out here is this is a tough spot the Sixers are in to try to upgrade this spot without making some kind of trade to look elsewhere. And I think the trade names are where it probably gets actually interesting.
Yeah, so let's reset things here as we are now a minute away from the start of free agency in the NBA.
All right, quick prediction time, Devon. We have a minute to go.
Yeah.
Who's the first Shams tweet? Which player signs a deal?
Dorian Finney-Smith.
To Houston?
Yeah.
I think that's a good prediction. Derek, do you have a prediction?
I gave that zero thought before this, so no.
So I'm just asking you to fire from the hip. Who do you think?
Well, I'm just going to piggyback off of Devon there. Sounds like good reasoning.
We can't go 3 for 3. So I'll say Brook Lopez to the Lakers.
Okay. So with that, as we reset things here, this is the PHLY Sixers Free Agency Frenzy presented by Rothman Orthopedics. Make sure you visit rothmanortho.com/PHLY to learn more And if you need an appointment, you got a new option right there at the Navy Yard. Go ahead and check it out. So Brooke Lopez to the Lakers potentially is Kyle's first one for Shams.
Just to be clear, this isn't breaking news yet.
No, so I said potentially for Kyle. For me and Derek is Dorian Finney-Smith to the Houston Rockets. We'll see who's right. We'll see who's wrong. We don't care. We just want to see some action and have some more to talk about with the Philadelphia 76ers and the league. It is time. So typically it's 6:01 that we see the first one drop. So let's see how fast this one happens with this one. But a quick super chat on the shooting. Someone asks, Riaz asked, would you be interested in Luke Kennard for the bench? Not a big, but the shooting.
Can't do it.
Okay.
Just no more guards. In fact, I'm out on Eric Gordon coming back, even though that seems likely. Yeah. I'm out on Kyle Lowry coming 100%. Back, even though that seems kind of likely. Like, I don't need guards on this team. I'm good.
We need some wings, right, Pump?
I said to Kyle pre-show, how many guards do you have when you list?
Zero.
Same.
None.
Because you don't need them.
Look, there is a value play.
Stuff. Yeah, I mean, come on. Yeah.
Maybe there's a value play. But
maybe.
But I can't see how using some of your limited resources that are left on a guard makes basically any sense.
And it really is, especially if you want to use that taxpayer mid-level and you want to navigate that hard cap. Like you can't cycle through minimum salary contract guys. You have very little wiggle room.
All right. Eddie says, Eddie Madrid in the super chat, did we discuss the Yabu buying a house in Philly Instagram post that was making the rounds? LOL. No, we didn't discuss it. He was living somewhere when he was here. Maybe that's old. I don't know.
Yeah, we don't even know if that's new. Like, you could just be trying to help out the guy.
The way it was phrased was also like, has been great helping out Guerschon Yabusele and his family. And it's like, does that mean that he was renting and
he's
furnished it? Yeah, like
the house is.
I think people drew conclusions that they don't have to be inaccurate, but they also might not be accurate. So we'll let it play out with Yabo.
Absolutely. B Pump says, I was warming up to VJ Edgecombe and was getting ready to embrace him, but he chose 77, the number, as his jersey number. And that is now out the door. Broom, broom, man has all the go-tos we need. So I'm the numbers guy. But we all agreed on 77. It was like, that's not
not right. Yep.
Yeah, even for Luka,
even more reason that Kyle Lowry cannot return to this team.
And my thing, Pump, was, why not 17 at least? We've seen that. With JJ and Tucker, we've seen 17. I think Hushafino even had it last season.
No, and look, I am
17.
I am very loath to give Brian Pumper any credit here. 77, he looks like an offensive, like a left tackle. Like, you can't be 77.
And a smaller left tackle at that. I mean,
first news of free agency, but not really. The Utah Jazz have guaranteed Svi Mikhailuk's salary.
He's been hanging around, man.
So he's locked in at $3.68 million.
Good for you, Svi.
Yeah, not exactly the opening bell I was expecting for free agency, but I do think even if deals are done, teams have figured out that if your business gets reported at 6:00 p.m. on the dot, that the league might look into it a little bit. So I credit to NBA teams for figuring out you can wait at least 5 minutes before texting Shams what you're doing.
All right. KU Sean says, assuming if the 76ers can keep both Grimes and Yabusele, do you guys expect more trade moves from the 76ers to improve? Shout out to the PHLY Sixers crew. Thank you so much, Sean, for that. So maybe that is where we'll lean into the trade possibilities there to answer Sean's question and to kind of pivot into that piece of the conversation of some trade targets and how this may come about.
So I have a bunch, right? They range from veteran guys who are on expirings, rookie contract players who are maybe like, hey, this guy just needs a change of scenery.
Okay.
Some are higher priority, some are shooters, some are not. I think the first name on the list for me is Herb Jones. Like, just seems like such a natural, is big enough, athletic enough at the 3 to play the 3-4, be a completely switchable defender, has improved as a shooter. Mm-hmm. He came out of school and people were like, this guy is not going to shoot at all. Has I believe a 40+% 3-point shooting season under his belt. Mm-hmm. While I don't think that is his natural level in a normal season, I believe in the shot. He's only making $13.9 million this year and $14.8 the year after that. So that is a gettable salary. If you package, I think it's basically Oubre and Drummond's money and then figure out what the additional stuff is. Have a lot of interest in him. I'm closely monitoring PJ Washington in Dallas. I think he is a name a lot of people have gone over, right, for good reason. On a $14 million expiring, we have to see if they're going to. He's extension eligible, I believe. But Dallas has been spending a lot of money on front court guys and just got Cooper Flag. And so you wonder, is this a guy who they're going to stay with long term? So he's someone. And then the rookie contract guy that's come up a lot is Cam Whitmore. I don't think he's not a clean fit into the role that they need. He's just more of this guy's a talent bet, right? Now there's some, you have to figure out why he fell the way he did on draft night, number one. There was some stuff out there that maybe it was health. Some of it might have been attitude. And his role has been up and down in Houston. What is he going to give you? I don't know. But with someone who was highly regarded by a lot of people just a couple years ago, is still on a really small rookie deal. Maybe you just sell the Rockets on, hey, he's odd man out. Get this guy out of there. We want him. We'll throw him in the rotation. He's more of a wing, but definitely someone I'm keeping an eye on.
All right. How about you?
I think those are good lists. And there's somebody who at draft time was complaining that we brought up Herb Jones every single show. So now we can keep that streak going.
Yeah,
that's perfect.
Got to.
Some of the ones for me that I had, PJ Washington, of course, on the expiring. Discussion if he's going to sign an extension with Dallas at all. So I agree with you there on that one. Herb Jones, that one is also another obvious one, so I won't just go over that one anymore. The Cam Whitmore, you all know how I feel. I leave that one just hanging out there. Even though I have to admit, something's up if he couldn't get on that floor. They were giving guys opportunities, those young players opportunities. For whatever reason, he couldn't get on the floor. Then the one report about him being ticked off about not knowing his role, and Ime Udoka's like, he knew his role. We talk about this stuff all the time. I didn't like that one, but
definitely not a good sign.
Doesn't mean I wouldn't
Who
want
was
him
that
here.
that did that with the Sixers? Glenn Robinson.
Yeah,
the third.
didn't know after he
What
finally
do you mean?
arrived.
You stand in the corner, you shoot, and you run in transition. Come on.
One for me that kind of out of the box, but still on his rookie deal and is up for an extension that we all liked. And it's just a mess in Sacramento. So would they be willing to part ways at some point with Keegan Murray and the shooting and the power forward position? That would be of interest for me. I don't know what it would take. I don't know what direction. They keep saying they're always still trying to win. They just never do it. So what are you doing, right? So, but look, if there's one player that you would think they would look to keep, it's him while they move on from the veterans of Levine, DeRozan, Sabonis, maybe. Keegan Murray is one that I would look into. Rui Hachimura is left for 1 year on his deal at 18. Who knows what's going on there now with Luka and wanting the people around Luka, maybe not building around LeBron James. So I thought about Rui Hachimura. And I also looked at, for the rebounding stuff and the size, shoots a little bit, Jalen Smith. He has 2 years left on his deal.
You've been on that island you're on Jalen Smith archipelago.
Because I didn't like it for Phoenix for the time that he was drafted when we were there. But since then, it was get him on a decent number and see if it works out for $9 million a year. And maybe he finally finds a role in the spot that he can play in, where he's not asked to do a lot next to Joel Embiid or whomever might be at that 5, but he can also play the 5 if need be for some spot minutes there, rebound, can score a little bit, can shoot the basketball. So that was just one that I also thought of. Smith.
Keegan Murray is, I think, the most interesting name in that list. And you would say, like, hey, there's been upheaval there. What are they going to do with this roster moving forward? The concern I would have is that his shooting has really been trending downward since his rookie year. He shot 41% on good volume from 3 as a rookie, down to under 36% as a sophomore, and then last year 34.3% from 3. And I'm not really sure why. I talked to people in Sacramento that said He just had cleaner shot opportunities as a rookie that they asked him to scale up, and maybe that just wasn't the right move for him, that he is more of a role player who needs stuff created for him despite being a high pick. And that's not a problem here, right? Like you bring him here and he's still on the rookie deal. I don't know what it would cost to ultimately get him, but you put him back into more of the role he was in when he first came into the league. You take expectations down a bit. He can be a switchable defender. He can rebound a little bit on the wing. I would like him quite a bit. I don't know what I'm willing to part with to get him. So we'll see. Like that's a name that I've been monitoring
I'd
for
still bet
a year
on
or
it.
so.
I still bet on it.
And that's disappointing because he had made a pretty big shooting jump during his second year at Iowa too. So he had 2 pretty good shooting seasons in a row. So this step back is, I think, a little bit concerning. But I do think ultimately if you get him better shots, easier shots, I have a pretty good degree of confidence he'll get back there. Maybe not 40% back there, but like 36, 37%.
The only reports, by the way, that we're getting right now
wild.
are essentially that the Kings are meeting people.
They absolutely ruined the game I love by docking the Sixers with a couple of BS seconds in the
From Chris
Daniel
Haynes,
House.
the Sacramento Kings have arranged meetings via Zoom to talk with Dennis Schroeder and Russell Westbrook. And Jake Fisher says the Kings are also planning to meet with Malcolm Brogdon, per sources, among their other point guard options. So far we have 3 point guards that the Kings are going to talk to, is the extent to which we have any free agency.
We already knew the
right
list
now.
wasn't great. So this is not, this is a little surprising just because you felt like things would start to happen. But there it is.
Here's another Pete. Here's a quick, I think this was expected, but from Kelly Iko at The Athletic. The Rockets are re-signing Jeff Green and Aaron Holiday to 1-year minimum deals. So again, I don't even think that's a bell.
Jeff Green is locker room, locker room guy. Yeah. Aaron Holiday, nice backup point guard. So yeah, it's fine. All right, so let me ask you guys this question. You know what? Should we? No, we'll do that like 20. Let me ask you this one because he's out there, and I have to ask because none of us brought his name up. For the first time, Ben Simmons is a free agent.
Yes.
In his career.
I'm going to go get some food.
So
that's what I think of that question.
So Derek, me and you, man.
I'm all for it. Mostly because his head will absolutely explode if that happens. And it will make great podcasts.
Law Murray from your former spot, The Athletic, says that Ben Simmons would like a greater salary than the minimum.
Okay.
Good luck for that, buddy, by the way. But I just got to ask. I mean, it's the first time he's out there. This is different territory for him.
You need rebounding. You need a little bit of playmaking. You need to make Kyle absolutely livid. He fills all 3 boxes, and he might be the only player in the league to do so.
Yeah.
I mean, look, it like he can't shoot.
Ramid is with you. Yes. In the chat.
He can't shoot. He's a shell of himself defensively. He's scared to go to the free throw line, and I'm sure there's still a little bit of bad blood. But hey, it doesn't seem like it's bad blood from his part. It seems like he's actually like okay with Philadelphia and the fan base and all that stuff. It would be absolute cinema.
Yes, it would be.
And I think that's completely. I cannot be rational and objective about this because it would just be so much gosh darn fun.
I had to ask you. It's a Sixers show. A former Sixers, #1 overall pick.
In all honesty, if he would come back for the minimum, and this was a couple years ago, like where he moved a little better defensively, I would like earnestly be on board.
What do you think his market is? Honestly, forget about the Sixers. What do you think his market actually is? Do you think he gets more than the minimum? Greater than the minimum, as Law Murray reports?
Probably not.
I don't think he will. I think he's going to have to accept the fact that I am going to have to take the minimum and show that I can still play. Again.
Yeah, no, I think that's probably right. But like a team giving him like a portion of a mid-level is, I guess, not completely crazy as long as it's not a multi-year thing. Like sort of like the Melton got last year. Like I don't think any of us, what did Melton get, like 12 mil for 1 year?
He got, yeah.
I don't think any of us were expecting Melton to get that. I don't
Golden
expect
State, right?
Ben Simmons to get that either.
State.
But sometimes teams will do weird stuff on a 1 year deal because they just don't really care.
But again, when we talk about money for the room for something like that, Brooklyn is the only one that really has room. He was already there. They saw that experience.
Yeah.
So they're not doing that where they inflate a number with that. I don't, is it a contender? Is it just somebody who's going to give him an opportunity? I just don't see it.
I think he would probably have to take a minimum. But what do you think, Kyle?
No loser.
Yeah. I mean, I'm curious to see what's what for him and what the reporting is, how long this takes for this to finally go through.
Checking in for the
where he does
Guangdong
it.
Tigers.
All right,
And
so
we do have
breaking news.
We do have legitimate breaking news.
This is real big news. Yeah. So is that worthy of a bell?
Yeah.
That's worthy of a bell. Go for it.
Memphis Grizzlies and Jaren Jackson Jr. have agreed to a 5-year, $240 million max renegotiation and extension.
They had to do that. After moving on, if they're still banking that he and Morant are the faces of the franchise, they had to do that.
Yep. It will be interesting what they do with all of those picks they got back for Bane. Do they try to go pursue a third star that fits a little bit better? Do they just try to build the two stars and role players that a lot of people here in Philly want? They have some options in front of them.
All right. So look, while it is kind of quiet right now on the free agency front, 15 minutes in, and then we get a breaking news for an extension for a franchise player, but no movement as of yet.
The universe heard you guys humoring putting this guy back on the Sixers and said, we need something to happen to dispel this nonsense. And all these people in the chat were like, he can still defend and rebound. Brother, have you watched him play? He can't defend anymore either because he can't move.
Yeah, you can't.
All right, let's take a quick pause. We come right back. We get back into it. The frenzy hasn't started on the open market, but the frenzy is rolling right here on the PHLY Sixers show. So
Bring
much
back Ben.
that Kyle
Bring
had to
back
walk off
Ben.
the set when we brought up Ben Simmons. We'll get to it all and more when we get back right here on the PHLY Sixers Free Agency Frenzy Show on Free Agency Day.
All right, first up, we want to tell you about Empire. Just like your favorite team needs a home court advantage, your home needs a home floor advantage, and Empire Today can help you get it. Empire Today has flooring experts, dedicated flooring professionals who focus on flooring every single day. We've all been to some of those big box stores, and while they might have a flooring department, the person actually helping you with the flooring may have been doing sinks yesterday and could be stocking light bulbs tomorrow. Empire Today lives and breathes flooring, and they will be with you every step of the way. Their flooring experts bring the showroom right to your home and pick the right flooring and the right colors for your space. You can see how it looks with your furniture and in your house. You get precise measurements taken and have all your questions answered, so there are no surprises. With Empire Today, you get clear, upfront, and all-inclusive pricing. Plus, you can schedule installation as soon as the next day. Schedule a free in-home estimate today because some things are just better at home. PHLY listeners can receive a $350 discount when using promo code PHLY. You heard that right, a $350 discount with code PHLY. Restrictions apply. Visit empiretoday.com/PHLY for full details. We also want to tell you about GLAT Hair. If your hairline's been slipping and you're thinking about doing something about it, listen up. Wouldn't know anything about that. I just wear a hat every day for no good reason. Hair transplants aren't just cosmetic.
Because you had to watch Ben Simmons play basketball.
They're real surgery. And if you're considering flying overseas to save a buck, think again. At GLAT Hair by Morgenstern Medical in Bala Cynwyd, you're getting care from board-certified surgeons with over 30 years of experience. They follow strict U.S. safety standards and deliver results that actually last. And here's the best part. You can text them a photo of your hair right now, and their team will take a look and let you know what options make sense for you. No pressure, just expert insight. Skip the travel, skip the risk, get real care from a trusted local team. Text your photo or call 610-980-4000 or visit glathairmm.com. That's GLAT Hair by Morgenstern Medical. Let's get that hairline back in the game.
Hey, what do you guys think? Do you think they should bring back Al Horford too so he can steal money again like he did the first time?
Because I know how much you love that
El
time.
Bandito
here too.
Back for his second bank robbery in Philadelphia.
Welcome back to the PHLY Sixers Free Agency Frenzy presented by Rothman Orthopedics. Kyle, we do have to talk about it being bright for the future for someone. Oh, yeah. And that is via the Shady Rays future.
Future is bright, baby.
Who's it bright for?
Anybody who doesn't employ Ben Simmons.
That is a bright future. That is a bright
I think it's,
future.
if we're being serious, I think it's certainly bright for Quentin Grimes, who, thanks to, you could call it good fortune, but also a lot of guys come to situations that are, as we'll say, hopeless as the Sixers were at the end of last year and are not necessarily equipped to come in and play the type of basketball that he did, right? He just
Future's bright for breaking news.
Ooh, he shot
from one of your guys. Future's
Look
bright.
at that. Well, this was a Derek mentioned earlier. Derek, you got to hit the bell for this one. Restricted free agent Santi Aldama has agreed to a 3-year, $52.5 million deal to return to the Memphis Grizzlies. Sources tell Shams Charania at ESPN.
Future's bright for his bank account.
Good for him, man. That was somebody we talked about quite a bit early in the year and maybe heading into the deadline, as it seemed like he was, potentially on the outs with Memphis, but he ends up sticking around, comes back. Memphis is the only team that's doing anything right now, man. Give me some more Memphis news, everybody.
Jaren Jackson and Santi Aldama. But to your point, Future's bright. He bet on himself by not taking that deal last summer with the Houston Rockets. And if we are to believe that he's going to get close to the number that it seems between that 12 to that 25, that's a big wide range, but it's bigger than what was reported last summer of what they were offered.
Now, what I would say is, are they going to have to move other guys in order to make this feasible? Because
you're talking about Memphis?
Yes, just because that's a lot of money for Jaren Jackson, but also now you have a pretty big figure for Aldama.
So who else has money on their roster outside of the number 10 pick last year? Zach
Well, so they brought on KCP who's at 21-6. Cole Anthony's making $13 million.
And he's been in a lot of conversations, at least rumor-wise, that he could be on the move again.
And Brandon Clark is at $12.5 million. Like, they have a good chunk of guys there making some pretty good money. I guess we'll have to wait and see what maybe they move someone like a John Conshaw or maybe one of their smaller salary guys. But yeah, Derek is more of the math guy. My instinct, especially as they're always a team you have to keep an eye on. It's like they're getting under the taxes generally down in Memphis. They're not a big spender team. So maybe there's some other moves coming there. We'll have to wait and see. The future is bright for Aldama, though. That's for damn sure.
Yeah, I might be the math guy, but if I had to try to memorize every team's cap situation, my head would explode.
Yeah.
All right, future is bright, presented by Shady Rays for not only Quentin Grimes, but also Santi Aldama and Jaren Jackson Jr. for the big deals that they just struck with their team staying in Memphis for both players in the front court for that particular group. We'll see where everything else goes from there. All right, still no news. That's 22 minutes.
No news that's of interest to you, I guess.
There's been two deals from one team. Like, come on, man.
Adam Silver.
Keeping their guys.
I will see you in hell. How about that?
Nobody cared about tampering. Nobody cared.
Well, so here's the funny thing, right? Did you guys see that video of Rich Paul that circulated over the weekend where he was on the phone with, it was Matt Ishbia, right? It
was Ishbia.
And essentially told him that he would make sure that Kaman Malawach got to them, right? So, like, you are allowing one of the most well-known agents in the league to now this has gone public to basically publicly say, I can direct a prospect to go to your team and away from other teams that's a top 10 player in the draft because I say so, or I tell this team don't take him. Like, that's such an absurd concept. In that case, just get rid of the draft. Like, I'm tired of all the second round we've known for years is basically just agents going to teams and saying, this guy's not playing here. And if you think you're drafting him, he's not going to play for you. So let's just go to undrafted. Like, why even bother with the draft at this point? You got the Mavericks winning the lottery. You got Rich Paul picking the team for Malawach ahead of time. Like, what are we doing here? And then you're going to step in and say, no tampering, no deals at 6:00. That's against the law. Like, pick a struggle, man.
Pick a struggle. Also, just a little bit of news. You mentioned Westbrook a little bit earlier with the Kings' potential interest. It appears that the Knicks will also have interest in Clarkson and Westbrook and would like to talk to both of them. Jordan Clarkson bought out with the Utah Jazz, so he's going to be an unexpected free agent out there on the open market. We didn't talk much about the DeAndre Ayton piece where out of nowhere he just became a free agent. We discussed it on draft night of all the centers that they did have, including Robert Williams, Heath, and Ayton. And here we are where he gets a buyout. And it was reported that from Jake Fisher, our friend, saying that he took about $10 million less off of his.
Oh, what a shame. He's only going to make $25 million to not play for the Portland Trail Blazers, plus whatever he's going to make on this next deal that he's going to get.
Forfeited $10 million of his $35.6 million salary for the 25-26 season.
Hey, good business if you can get it.
But a name that's now out there that was unexpected, where you mentioned Brook Lopez, Al Horford's name has been talked about. Not many centers that we've really heard, but now he is one that's out there. Not for the Sixers, just more of league-wide, a name that we didn't expect.
Yeah.
At least on the free agent market.
I think Ayton, I think if there weren't so many connections between the Lakers and Brook Lopez already, I think they would have been the team I'm like, DeAndre Ayton's going to go play in LA. And he still might, right? Like, I wouldn't rule out the possibility that both of those guys go there. It sort of depends on what they're each looking for and what kind of money they get. But DeAndre Ayton is the type of guy that you put him with Luka Doncic, he'll just spoon feed him a bunch of easy baskets. The reason that he gets bought out, outside of the fact that they just drafted a second young center they needed to develop, is that DeAndre Ayton is just a sometimes player, right? Like, he is not what I would call a foxhole guy. He just, the thing that I think has summed up his career is, and I hate to say this, when he got snowed in, you remember that? He missed the games. It's like, I just can't get there. And I was like, it just kind of sums, it's like, all the other guys somehow made it there, but he apparently lived in an area, and there were all these people in Portland like, hey, listen, buddy, you don't get how icy the streets get. And I'm like, no, I get it. Like, some areas are more prepared for snow and ice than others. But most of the other guys would make accommodations to still get to the arena. It's like, hey, maybe you need to walk up the hill or down the hill a little bit,
the car service,
and then catch an Uber or catch the team will pick you up, whatever. And that just felt like such a summation of his career to me. He's a talented guy, and when he's bought in, he's very, very good. But I'm just not a believer in what he's selling.
Nah.
So am I getting tripped on in this studio?
I saw you look
now?
up a few times, and
yeah,
I hope not. I hope not. Hope that's not the case. I hope that's not happening for you. So still quiet out there outside of Memphis, and what they're doing. Also, looks like one report, Jaren Jackson is changing his jersey number.
Oh,
adding to the mix.
So what?
To number
77.
Yeah, to number 8. Looks like he's changing his number. So from 13 to 8 for Jaren Jackson Jr. Other than that, it's pretty quiet overall out there. It's
Free agency frenzy.
No tampering. They don't want to draft picks taken away from them, any of that stuff. They're like, no, thank you. No, thank you at all.
Again, I do think, circling back to something we were talking about earlier, I think this is just part of how the league has shifted, right? It's a lot more trades and especially draft night and deadline deals than it is open free agency, right? They're just, and this is a unique year where there aren't a lot of teams with gigantic cap space. So that's having a little bit to do with it. Honestly, frankly, one of the most interesting stories in free agency was LeBron putting out a statement through Rich Paul after opting into his deal, as if it was like, hey, I'm opted in, but I'm monitoring the situation. It's, bro, what do you mean? You opted in. You're on the team.
He wants to win a championship.
I saw that and was like, what's going on here?
Yeah, he wants to win a championship. All right. So while it is a little quiet right now, that'll give us time to take one more pause, because some things are going to happen in the final 31 minutes of our show. So let's take a quick pause. We come back, talk about where Kelly Oubre, Andre Drummond, Eric Gordon are, because Eric Gordon did opt out. And we'll talk about that and what that means for him going, staying, what it means if he does stay, to the salary cap, all of that stuff, because it's the free agency frenzy. PHLY Sixers style right here on a Monday. Crickets. All right, folks, and I got to hang out with you and tell you about a couple of our friends. So let me set you up here as we talk about Bet365. If you were betting that the first name to come off the board was going to be at 601, Bet365 took your money because you were wrong if that was the bet you made. But Bet365 does have over 90 million users worldwide. And whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Live stream 780,000 events a year. Early payouts when the NBA and the NHL seasons are in play. You get early payout options there for them. They have pioneered live in-game betting. Bet365 offers the widest range of games and markets available for live in-game betting across 78 sports. And when you do sign up,
I hope you bet on Dorian Finney-Smith to the Rockets.
Breaking news from the association and Bet365. New customers can get $150 in bonus bets when you bet $5. That's win or lose. Sign up, use code PHLY365, deposit 10, place a bet for $5, and you get $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins or loses. Bonus bets can be used on the spread, totals, player props, futures, and more. Like for Dorian Finney-Smith during the season with his new team, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary.
Devon tried to get a jump on the ads and said, let's do it when news breaks.
Must be 21 plus and physically located in Pennsylvania. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-GAMBLER. And also, let me tell you about Cherry Hill Kia. If you're looking for amazing deals and super low lease payments, Kia of cherryhill.com is the place to be. They're celebrating all month long on their new massive selection of over 450 new Kias to choose from. They have over 40 Tellurides, over 100 Sportages, and over 35 Carnivals of 78 Celtos and over 80 Souls. Combine all of that with the Driver's Choice Awards, all the amazing things that happens with their 450 models tested and 20 models received their awards. Combine that with the best warranty in the automotive business at 10 years, 100,000-mile powertrain, and 5 years, 60,000-mile bumper-to-bumper. Stop in today, tell them PHLY sent you, and receive $100 gift card for restaurant.com just for taking a test drive or completing a trade appraisal. I know people buy Kias elsewhere. I simply don't know why. Drive home in your new Kia today, just minutes from all bridges, or available online 24/7 at kiaofcherryhill.com. Welcome back to the PHLY Sixers podcast, the free agency frenzy, where the frenzy was happening during the commercial break. Let's have at it, guys.
Two different signings.
Big news here. Paul Reed.
Oh,
2-year, $11 million. No, but the big news is that Shams used AKA B-Ball Paul in the tweet.
Is he staying with Detroit?
God. He is 2 years, $11 million.
Dorian Finney-Smith.
Guaranteed?
4-year, $53 million deal to go to the Houston Rockets. So that one was not hidden particularly well coming into free agency.
So I win. Got that one right. First one off the board.
Did you?
What was the first one off the board?
None staying with their team, guy.
I don't know if that's a stipulation.
That is the stipulation. That's exactly how I'm counting it.
Aldama was a free agent.
That stayed with his team.
No, absolutely not.
That's how I'm
not
counting
claiming victory.
I'm claiming victory on that one.
Okay.
So there's that. All right. So 4 years, how much?
We're going to recount the votes on that one.
4 years.
I said it. I don't know. You were too busy claiming victory. I have to go back and look at this.
53 million.
There you go.
All right. So 2 years, 11 for Paul Reed. And you said there's no information on if that's fully guaranteed. And I asked that because last year it wasn't guaranteed for him.
Yeah.
Another deal. Ring the bell. The Memphis Grizzlies and Cam Spencer have agreed to a 2-year, $4.5 million deal.
That's the one that was there in Memphis, right? Because the other
he was
Spencer
on I believe he was on a two-way. Yeah. I want to say
he was in Memphis. I don't remember exactly.
Yeah, he played for Memphis. I think he was on a two-way contract.
His brother's with the Golden State Warriors. That's why I was making.
Finney-Smith though is interesting because he's just like almost all the other guys that they have or have had. It's certainly their type of player. It still feels like they could probably use a creative guy. Like a guard, right? I know they went and got Kevin Durant, but I'm not sure counting on creaky Fred VanVleet is going to cut the mustard in the playoffs if you're a hopeful contender.
Is this where Cam Whitmore possibly on the move, where that might make sense to bring somebody else in with that type of move? They bring him in, they re-sign and extend, they extend Jabari Smith. What does this mean for Tari Eason? Not now, but just more because of the money they gave Jabari Smith, the money they just gave Dorian Finney-Smith, bringing back Steven Adams, while they did move on from Dylan Brooks. I get that. Does that say anything about what that might mean for him?
I don't know. That's a great question, because I do think like he is a little bit redundant with all the other moves that they've made, and he's not a really trustworthy offensive player. Love him defensively, absolute stud in that regard, but you do worry about him in the playoffs on offense, and they've got a very crowded group.
I think you'd worry about him less on offense if he was on a team that was not built the way the Rockets were last year, and maybe will continue to be built, right? Because you add Finney-Smith, it's just a log jam of these. You're going to build around Amen Thompson to some extent. Your centers are not shooters, so the shooting has to come from somewhere. I would not be surprised if Tari Eason is at least like teams are going to make calls about him. My estimation is if he gets moved and maybe even Jabari Smith or one of these other guys, it's for a star of some sort. I think that's a consolidation trade waiting to happen.
And maybe that's where, if Whitmore is not moved, he's just added in that because he wasn't in that Suns deal. So maybe just add.
And allegedly the Suns were trying to get him in that deal, and the Rockets were like, no. So we gave the Rockets credit because it's like, yeah, you got Kevin Durant, and you didn't give up a whole lot. They were pretty judicious about, like, it seemed like Phoenix asked on a lot of guys and made demands, and the Rockets were just like, no, thank you. And we'll actually keep these guys.
And Tari's got, 1 year before he's a restricted free agent?
Yeah, he just came off of his 3rd season. So
I wonder if they would target somebody not a lead guard, but a guy who can score, somebody like Jordan Clarkson, who just hit the market unexpectedly. If that's something, he's different from everybody else, but
I just think
scoring
that Reed Shepherd is probably going to get more of an opportunity this year. So I'm not sure. I think if they're going to trade for a guard, it's more like this is a guy who's a really good, like, number 1 guard right now, and not someone who's like a bench offense guy. Now maybe maybe they play it out till the deadline and decide, hey, we just can't trust Shepherd as a, whether it's as a starter or backup on a team that we're trying to win this season. But my guess is they would either go for somebody, big time, or probably not at all.
So what's their lineup look like right now? VanVleet, Durant, Şengün, Finney-Smith. Now you would presume that he's in the starting lineup. Is Jabari Smith the other guy? You just have a big Finney-Smith.
Well, Thompson's going to start.
So
it'll be Thompson, VanVleet, Durant, Şengün, and pick your guy out of
those
the
three.
Rest of them. Yeah. I think it would make some sense to play Jabari as a start, like just for the shooting's sake.
Yeah.
But it because Amen had his breakthrough year, now everything kind of changes, because for a lot of last year, at least the first half of last year, it was him and Eason coming in off the bench for them and just like completely screwing up the other team's game. It's like those two get thrown at you on defense, and it just like a tornado hit the floor. So it'll be interesting to see how they sort things out with that group.
Yep. Super chat from Brandon from New Jersey says, draft ace. I'm behind on my PHLY Sixers pods. No spoilers, please.
And for the record, I'm pretty sure that Brandon is trolling and is not an ace guy from what I know based on Discord and some
I'm
other
also
places.
just giving Brandon the benefit of the doubt that he wouldn't actually say that. So yes.
But and the other one about ace was the Contraman 23 says draft ace at 3, LOL. Little breaking news from the Memphis Grizzlies again. from Shams.
The Grizzlies are active, man. They're settling all debts right now.
Cole Anthony's reps are working toward a resolution that allows Memphis to create the necessary cap space to renegotiate and extend Jaren Jackson Jr. while giving Anthony opportunity.
Shams, can you use real English language to explain what's happening there? That's a nonsense sentence.
They're negotiating for him to get out of there.
No. Saying that they're working toward a resolution that allows them to create cap space while giving Cole Anthony the opportunity to find his next destination.
So he's getting
means
bought
one
out.
of two things.
He's getting bought out
or he's getting traded. Yeah. One or the other. Use real English language.
I'm guessing the agent probably didn't want him to use real English.
Just dancing around all this nonsense.
More super
Cole's
chats.
got 2 years left, so there's some money owed to him.
More super chats. We'll go back to Sean from earlier. Says that shout out to the Phillies Sixers crew. Appreciate it. If 76ers can keep Yabu and Grimes.
Did you just call us Philly?
I thought it was the entire Philly. So the PHLY. Capitalize that.
It's bad enough when like random people say that, but not my co-host.
The PHLY Sixers crew. Said that earlier too. And what else?
If they can keep Yabu and Grimes, would it be enough to call it a successful free agent year?
Or more trades needed? Now, I was redoing that because it was similar to the first question that he asked about that, right, Bree? Wasn't it very similar? Yeah. So I was making sure. I'm like, is that the same one that I read earlier? But so all right.
Yes, that would be a successful free agency. I think more trades will be needed, but I'm not sure if that's going to be an off-season thing or an in-season thing.
I think that's the important thing, right? I think all of us going into the year are probably going to be sitting there saying, this is not a complete roster of a team that's going to do any damage in the playoffs. And the first 2 months, 2.5 months, wherever you want to draw the line, are going to be a testing ground for the lineup combinations. How badly do they need a true four? What does it look like? I think specifically against the teams in the East that you're competing with, right? Because it is a thinned out East playoff picture coming up next year. So we have to wait and see exactly what it is the whole league looks like, let alone the Sixers roster.
Ryan says, bring back Jalen Hood Scafino with the laughing emoji.
I think I'm good on that one. I'm like, what's that guy at, is it Redistrict, the politics guy who does the I've seen enough and then declares the race?
Yes.
I've seen enough. Jalen Hood Scafino, I'll swear.
Yeah.
Thank you for your service.
Flyer number one. Any trade candidates you would give up the unprotected Clippers pick for?
Sure. That's probably a pretty big list of them, honestly.
The answer is yes. The answer is I'd have to look into it more, though.
Yeah. I don't, honestly, if you're asking me, I don't think that pick is super valuable just because I think Steve Ballmer will spend as much money as is necessary to be at least a competitive team. That doesn't mean they can't be, beaten up by injuries and there's not some like downside risk.
Well, and we used
to
see that with the Lakers way back in the day when the Sixers had their pick like top 3 protected like 4 straight years. Like, well, eventually someone's going to want to go to LA, and it didn't happen until after the Sixers had like the 10th pick or whatever. So it's not like guaranteed like fate that LA is going to get good, free agents and spend money and be decent. And especially because nowadays with the flattened lottery odds, there's always a chance. But I think I broadly agree with Kyle. Where like I don't think that has a high likelihood of being a super high pick, so I'm willing to use that.
I'm not laughing at you, I promise.
No, I mean
there is a follow-up tweet now from Shams on the Cole Anthony thing. What do you think he said?
Oh, I see the tweet.
This means the playmaking and scoring guard is entering the marketplace.
So he's getting bought out.
Say what you mean. Say what it means. Either he's a free agent or he's on the trade block. It's one or the other.
No, he's entering the marketplace. We like euphemisms.
Oh, my God. Speak like a normal person and not a robot.
Let's go to Roku. Toku Gawa 411.
What is that gibberish?
On the super chat. Sounds like Ben Simmons wax Kyle in a few games of Call of Duty. Got to let that go, man. Thank you.
That would be a good contest. I'd be interested in seeing that. I feel like Ben's probably put a little more time and effort into Call of Duty, though.
In recent years, yes. When I was like 19, no.
You guys can do that for the show.
I will not be playing Call of Duty again. And that was, you guys have gotten the spiel. Anything that the fun factor is superseded by the rage factor, that
over.
drops off the hobby list.
It's over. All right.
Call of Duty was up there.
All right. This is the PHLY Sixers Free Agency Frenzy Show presented by Rothman Orthopedics. Visit rothmanortho.com/PHLY to learn more if you need them. All right. A couple of Sixers news and notes. Lonnie Walker with the Sixers last year came from back overseas and played with the Sixers at the back end of the season. The Sixers declined to pick up his $2.9 million option. For Lonnie Walker. So that's one. Did you want to see him back at all?
Not really. So I think there's two things. I think it's sort of like Jared Butler where there's just a crunch of guards. I thought Lonnie had maybe a little bit more of a chance because theoretically he has a little longer wingspan, could maybe defend more archetypes, but he's also not really good defensively, so you don't really want to bank on that. And also he makes about $600K more than the league minimum. So we've talked about it earlier where you need every even couple 100,000 you can get if you're going to use that taxpayer mid-level and stay under the hard cap. So that's not insignificant. Also, he wasn't all that good. So
okay. Eric Gordon declined the player option at $3.4 million, but we do have breaking news. Shams is now reporting non-Cole Anthony related Jake LaRavia.
Thank God.
Jake LaRavia, who we talked a lot about, has agreed to a 2-year $12 million deal with the Los Angeles Lakers.
that sounds right at the taxpayer mid-level.
Yep.
Okay.
One name off the board.
One down.
Cross him
I like,
off
so
the
honestly,
list then.
I like that.
Yeah, I like
oh,
that
wait,
too.
hold on. Chris Haynes is disputing that. He says it's with the Kings.
Shams is not having a good day if that is true.
Oh my God. This is a real standoff now. Let's see who got it wrong.
Just the fact that it is pure, like exactly what the taxpayer mid-level is, makes me think that he's going to the Lakers. It makes me think he's changing teams.
Yeah. Let's just let it play out. I'm not picking sides here, despite the fact that I just
but we
yelled about Shams' couching of whatever he was reporting.
But we do have to read the super chat strictly because of that just happening. Marcus Blackstock says, "Bring back Woj, man."
Look, Woj is a goat.
No comment. I love Woj. That's my guy. That's all I'll say.
Martian Lynch says, "James cannot be trusted. He's not ready for the moment."
Oh my God, man. I'm dying.
All right. And Philly fan 215, Ramid says the same thing. And now they're just taking shots.
I'm just waiting to see. Lakers or Kings. I think Derek, his instincts are where I would be at. I think it's likely he changed.
It's funnier though if Sean screwed it up. So I'm kind of hoping I'm wrong, if I'm being honest.
Great Bogus says, "YouTube used my real name." Also, Ben does pass the Kyle height test.
That's about the only thing he passes.
All right, so the Eric Gordon.
Well, that's not true. He passes a lot, and that was kind of the whole problem.
That's part of the problem. Eric Gordon declines the $3.4 million player option, but it doesn't mean that he could not return to Kyle. It was something that we talked about before, that he could do so but still come back.
Yeah, I still think. I think Eric Gordon is going to look out there and see if maybe he can play more elsewhere. But I do think that he only declined the option in the first place because he knows he has somewhere to go, which is Philadelphia.
Probably back here. Yeah. So I guess while we wait for the source wars to play itself out, quickly go over what's happening here. And this is something we talked about a long time ago, that he could possibly opt out of the second year of this contract. It's basically because when you sign a minimum contract, the NBA prorates that cap hit down to the cap hit of a 2-year veteran minimum. They do this so that you don't prefer to sign young players over old players because of lower cap hit, but they only do that for a 1-year deal.
Source off is over.
Uh-oh.
Haynes bent the knee. It's the Lakers.
Right. Which, again, I appreciate being right, but it would have been funnier if Shams was wrong. Anyway, by opting out, basically, Eric Gordon can reduce his cap hit by about $1.1 million, giving you some of that much-needed flexibility under the apron. So that, theoretically, the Sixers did this 2 years ago with Montrezl Harrell, where he opted out. out of a 2-year minimum deal. Went out, saw if there was anything better out there. There wasn't, so he came back about 2 weeks later, signed with the Sixers. I think probably the same thing's happening here.
Okay, on the LaRavia front there, since the knee was bent,
Lakers.
is that number right about what you would have been comfortable giving for the Sixers at that 6 for the 2 for 12?
Yeah, the problem is the Sixers can't give that until they know what's going on with Quentin Grimes.
And that's why they
Because
lose
if
out.
Quentin Grimes gets 20, you're screwed.
Fun times.
Okay.
But yeah, I would have if let's say if the Sixers sign Quentin Grimes to like $17 million and you're able to dump Andre Drummond, so you get a little bit of flexibility under that second apron, then signing LaRavia to that 2-year taxpayer mid-level, which again would have hard capped you at like was it 208 point something? It doesn't matter. It's hard capped you at the second apron, but you had to clear some space under that first.
Would you have preferred LaRavia to Yabu?
Yes.
I think so too. Just
I have
'cause
more
think
confidence in the
shooting
shot. Yep.
is, yeah.
And just in the fact that he might have a chance at the 4.
All right. And even though this happened yesterday, we weren't here. Kelly Oubre and Andre Drummond both picked up their player options
As
on Sunday,
expected.
as expected.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think Oubre is the guy where it's at least he's a real rotation guy, right? Like he honestly still might start again this year, although I would probably prefer that he does not. Drummond is the guy that I think if you're looking for an obvious salary to dump somewhere, like attach a second to him and send him to some team that's just open for bidding on their cap space because they're not trying to win right now, he'd be the guy because he was not good last year. It doesn't sound like anyone is like itching for him, whether it's inside, outside. Like nobody really wants him to play this year for the Sixers. You play the young guys and you have Joel Embiid. I would imagine there is at least going to be an attempt to do something with his salary.
And by the way, just to stick up for Chris Haynes, I'm sure he didn't get it sourced wrong. He probably just had it in his head that he played for Memphis and typed the wrong thing. I'm sure it wasn't a sourcing problem.
There's a new version of this post that is still up for the Chris Haynes tweet there. So Jake LaRavia, pardon me, 2 years, $12 million.
It can happen so easily.
It could. I've done it plenty of times.
It could be the Kings of the Lakers. It could be Chris or Jake. You never know.
Could be.
Maybe there's a brother out there we don't know about.
Jake LaRavia, 2 years to the Los Angeles Lakers. Source Wars is over, as Derek called it. It's over now. That is hilarious. All right, so as we're getting ready to wind this one down, we got about 8 minutes left for us here on the show. Do you think anything?
And then at 7 o'clock, everything will instantly happen.
Do you think anything happens?
Free agency is so wild.
I'm going to be driving back to my house, and it's going to be like,
well, he's the one
alerts.
with the longer drive, so it's going to be him, and then I get home sooner, and we have to do an emergency pod while Derek's driving. Do you think anything happens today for the Sixers?
Not a thing.
Okay.
I mean, if they get somebody to agree to a minimum, but most people are not agreeing to sign to a minimum. They want a free agency. That's more of a... Yeah,
I didn't want to say this at the top of the show because Kyle always yells at me when I tell people not to watch. But now that we're 8 minutes from the end, I actually wrote that earlier today that I don't think there's much of a chance anything happens because I think you're waiting on Quentin Grimes. And I saw someone in the chat like, why would you wait on Quentin Grimes? Well, because it's your most valuable asset that you can acquire or retain today.
You're not getting a better player than Quentin Grimes.
And you're not getting a more valuable trade chip today than Quentin Grimes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So while I get that's frustrating, that's just how it's going to go.
Yeah.
We're going to be on Quentin Grimes watch for a little bit.
All right. That's pretty quiet. Little bell rings here today.
But we do appreciate you all tuning in for.
Yeah, and we're still here. I was just wanted to make sure I did ask that question.
Talking some NBA basketball.
Yeah, absolutely. Summer League is going to be getting underway next week, and free agency starts now. So a lot of good things happening in the NBA. But yeah, it's a little down from what we're accustomed to when it comes to NBA free agency. A little bit different. Change here for,
and also just like the year on year for the Sixers, like we said to open the show, is wildly different.
Yep.
It's all their eggs were in the free agency basket. It was, hey, Jared McCain, we'll see how he looks at Summer League, but it was not a potential pivot point in franchise history the way when you take a guy at number 3 like Edgecombe. So it's a lot of just monitoring what it's It's the meme of Squidward in his house looking at SpongeBob and Patrick running around outside. Mm-hmm. That's kind of us watching free agency. It's like, oh, look what the Rockets are doing. Look what the Lakers are doing. We're all Squidward. I think Derek and I have some Squidward energy. Devon more of a SpongeBob guy. Maybe a Sandy. Both nicer than Squidward is, so.
Yeah, I'll pay attention. I'll see what's going on. Some, even though this was like 30 plus, the perfect, Bree.
Derek and I watching free agency happen. Devon not having a care in the world running around.
I'm actually sitting there just watching, and I don't want to be on my phone all day.
No.
I don't want to be on there tomorrow all day.
It would be nice to get business done, and then we just move on.
Yeah.
Especially because they start summer league practice tomorrow. It would be great to be like, we're just going to focus solely on the kids and the VJ and all that stuff. But no.
All right, I want to look up Shams' Cole Anthony thing real fast. There's a reason. So this was 16 minutes ago, right? So on Twitter, Greg Anthony is on television live on NBA TV. He said 40 minutes ago that there's a possibility that his son gets bought out by Memphis. So
it's that easy.
Is it there? So I just wanted to
it's that easy.
To bring that one to the table because of how Kyle had to scream and yell about that.
Come
one.
on.
Yeah, so I just wanted to make sure.
We got another super chat from Sean Sharp. I think he just sent a donation, but I think he was trying to ask, what are our thoughts on targeting Keegan Murray? We did talk about it earlier. But Devon, since you brought up Keegan Murray earlier.
I brought him up because as one of the targets potentially, just because he's still in his rookie deal and did have, as Derek and Kyle pointed out, a bit of a down year for what we thought his shooting would start to really show itself to be after the rookie season that he had. Hasn't shot the ball as well. But for me, it was more of a bet on, I still think he has it. Think it's still in there. The guys brought up that the spacing could have been a problem because when you have someone like Sabonis and DeRozan out there on the floor, it's just not creating the same opportunities that you had year one versus year two or year three. And in a case like Philadelphia, maybe with Embiid playing better, first of all, playing, and then playing better where he's out there on the floor and creating that opportunity for space. The same thing with Tyrese Maxey and Paul George being a willing passer, where those chances may be there for him to have better looks at the rim from behind the three-point line. So that's why he was brought up by me. The guys talked about the things that they would like about it, maybe. And so an option, a guy that is still looked at as a young player that can play. And the mess that's going on in Sacramento, could they look to move him? And would you be able to jump into those conversations and bring him into the mix as well? So that's why we talked about Keegan Murray a little bit earlier.
Good size, has decent shooting potential.
And it's clearly the power forward position if you're bringing him in.
Not a outlier. He's like good enough athlete.
Yeah.
So checks a bunch of boxes. So if he's gettable, certainly got to consider it.
Final one before we get ready to say our goodbyes. We'll be back tomorrow, normal showtime, 3 p.m. tomorrow, and the rest of the week through Thursday. We're off on Friday, so just wanted to give everybody a heads up. Also, Derek, Philadelphia, as we said, we would touch on it quickly, but we'll talk about it a little bit more. The WNBA team announced that not only with Philadelphia, it's Cleveland and Detroit also getting WNBA teams as well.
And it's 2030 would be the inaugural season for Philadelphia. We don't have any details on the name or anything like that. I'm sure that will be a long process. But it's great that it finally happened. And we think we all assumed it would happen for quite a while now. Sometimes you assume and these things don't come to pass. So it is good to get confirmation of that. Josh Harris gets to add another team to his portfolio as the HBSE is the managing
Which I know a lot of
partner
people are just thrilled about.
Thrilled with. I'm sure he will do just fine with that. No, but I mean, it truly is great. And it's something that's long overdue. Like the fact that they're going to be the 18th franchise in the league is wild. You would have thought they would have been one of the first 5 or 6 or whatever. I don't know if I necessarily know why that didn't come to be earlier on, but it's great to finally correct the wrong.
Yep, absolutely. All right, folks, we'll be back tomorrow, 3 p.m. here on the show. Normal showtime, not a 5 to 7 run for us here. We'll see if anything happens over the course of time before we get back with you at 3 p.m. But until then, let's make sure we say our world famous. It's the roll call time.
I can't get used to this whole YouTube.
I don't
really
know what's going on.
So now it's whatever your @ is, that's who you're getting called, because that's how YouTube has deemed chatters will be labeled in the chat system. I don't like it. You don't like it, but we all have to get used to reality, just like we all have to get used to this new Adam Silver hated on free agency.
So freaking washed.
Period. Come on, man. Anyway, thank you to Bootzilla, to Spirit
Boots.
42, to Taryn's Knights, to Martian Lynch, Superhero 18, who I think is Music Lover, but again, no exceptions.
What up, Music
your
Lover
name is your
31?
name. Philly Hedva. What is that from? Is that The Wire? My name is my name.
Yeah, that is the wire.
Yeah.
Yep.
Marlo, if I remember correctly.
Marlo, yep.
D Flyers, Money Mar, Habib,
What up, Mar?
2157, Marley in the building, Jason of the Jungle, which is just really uncomfortable for me to say and look at after so many times calling him something else. Lee Nguyen,
What up, Lee?
Just Tom, Densley, Irish Sax Man. Who else we got here? I think I
Irish.
said Bootzilla. I'm going to say it again.
Boots!
Antoine 92.
Up,
Mellow
Twan?
3 point.
Mellow,
See,
my
there's
man.
somebody who's
Breaking news.
oh no, that was not Trey Jones back to the Bulls. 3 years, 24.
That's
okay,
a big number
It's
for
breaking
him.
news.
yeah, but is it breaking news we care about? Not really. Yams, Tide checks. Who else we got? Sean Sharp, who had a super
What
chat.
up, Sean?
Did the Pump Man have a super chat, Bree? Who were our super
did.
chatters
B-Pump
today?
did have one.
B Pumper. See, that's brand consistency right there. We got Eddie Madrid, Sean
What up,
Lee,
Ed?
Riaz,
Yes.
the great Bogus, who didn't want to dox himself, so I'm going to spare him that. Flyer number 1. Is that Tokugawa?
Yes. That's
Don't
what
let
I
me
said.
butcher your name. Just trust that it's not from a place of malice. It's a place of being a moron with hoagie mouth. We got Brandon from New Jersey, Marcus Blackstock. I think those are all our super chatters. You better love somebody.
Love
as
somebody.
well.
Love somebody.
Oh, Drew B.
Nona was in there.
Old Man Slade.
What up, Slade?
Old Man Slade at
man.
that. What happened to Young Man Slade?
He
Jay
aged overnight,
Shulman, 98.
over the weekend.
I feel like Old Man Kyle right now. I'll tell you that. Table Manners, 1780.
Have your table, man.
MJB.
What up, MJB?
What happened to our old other friend MJB who used to hang out here
That's
a
a good
lot? I
question.
haven't checked in on the Prince of Porto in
about
quite a while.
How about MDB?
Matt Carrington, Kyle Wright, Evan Davis, Robert,
What up,
Wawa
Rob?
Marvel, Watch. Is that Sicario?
That's a lot of names.
There's a lot of names in there.
Come on, YouTube. Fix it.
YouTube really screwed me on this one, guys. Philly fan 25.
You know we love you.
I think that's Rob Mid. But again, I
That
can't.
is Rob
I can't
Mid.
see,
That is Rob
I
Mid.
remember the avatars for a lot of people, but YouTube really messing with us. Anyway, thank you guys for being with us. Hit the subscribe button, hit the bell icons. You get notifications.
Another
like
breaking
this
news.
one, D'Angelo Russell, 2 years, $13 million to the Dallas Mavericks. That one's been known
That's been
for
choreographed.
Yeah.
a little bit, so not surprised there. Hit the bell icon so you get notifications each and every time we go live.
What up, Swan?
Thank you to Swan. Thank you to my girl Winona. Hit the thumbs up button on the way out to say thank you.
Sicario was a great
Super
movie.
producer Bree.
Thank you,
We're
Bree.
always holding it down. Pulling up SpongeBob memes in the middle of the show because that's what she does. Thank you, Bree. Thank you to all of you. We'll be back tomorrow. Goodbye.
See ya.
We all silly like the mayor.